Let's dive right into this explainer. Picture this. You're tasked with engineering the longest river on Earth. The catch? You're doing it in a country that doesn't have a single natural river to begin with. Sounds impossible, right? Well, Saudi Arabia is actually pulling off one of the most mind-bending engineering paradoxes on the planet. We're talking about a project that fundamentally challenges our understanding of natural limits, literally transforming an incredibly scorching arid landscape through sheer brute force technological willpower. To really wrap our heads around the cinematic scale of this paradox, we have to start with a staggering number: 0. There are exactly 0 natural rivers in a nation where 98% of the land is just unforgiving, blistering desert. To give you some context, rainfall in the capital, Riyadh, averages just 116 millimeters a year. That's kind of like taking the amount of rain a city like London might get in just a couple of wet weeks and stretching it out over an entire year. And yet, this is a country whose population has absolutely exploded, going from around 3 million back in 1950 to over 35 million today. You know as well as I do, you just can't sustain that kind of explosive growth in a desert without a massive, ultra-reliable flow of fresh water. So the solution they've engineered is just incredibly audacious. They aren't just carving out some small local canal or a basic aqueduct. No, they're building a massive subterranean water network spanning over 12,000 kilometers. That is literally twice the length of the mighty Nile River. It's this artificial underground highway custom-built to transport an ocean's worth of fresh water across a barren empire. It is completely rewriting the ecological destiny of the entire region. But before this artificial river was even a blueprint, the kingdom relied on something else entirely. They were aggressively draining what geologists call fossil water. Think of fossil water like a giant, single-use ecological battery. We're talking about ancient water trapped deep underground during the last ice age. And the crazy thing is, it's not replenished by rainfall. Once you drain it, it is gone for good. And for decades, the country basically treated this finite ancient resource like an endless magical well. And relying on that single-use battery? Well, it led straight to an unsustainable crisis. By the year 2003, a massive 85% of the country's total water supply was being drained for one reason: agriculture. The government was chasing this massive dream of food security, aggressively incentivizing wheat farming right smack in the middle of the desert. And yeah, sure, the sands briefly bloomed green, but it came at a totally catastrophic cost to those ancient aquifers. Actually, NASA satellite data from their GRACE mission delivered a pretty chilling verdict on this. Between 2002 and 2016, the data showed the nation was losing 2 trillion liters of its precious fossil water every single year. To put that insane number into perspective, that's like permanently draining 800,000 Olympic swimming pools annually. Just gone. It was a rapid, totally unsustainable depletion. At that rate, the underground battery was completely short-circuiting. They were forced into a hard pivot. The era of mining ancient water was officially over. They literally had to invent a new future. So to survive, they pivoted to a colossal technological solution. The physical architecture of this new artificial river is actually a Guinness World Record-holding water transmission system. We're looking at an underground highway made of massive, specially coated anti-corrosion pipes. Each one is 2.25 meters in diameter. That means an average adult could easily walk right through them, standing completely upright. Right now, they are pumping over 9.4 million cubic meters of fresh water through this network every single day. To truly wrap your mind around this scale, consider the entire distribution network running beneath the cities. As Saudi reporter Al-Shugairi noted, it hits 126,000 kilometers. That is vast enough to wrap around the entire Earth's equator 3 times over. 3 times! It is a mega project of almost mythological proportions. And the wildest part is that it functions entirely out of sight, just quietly running beneath the sand and the city streets. Okay, so here's the obvious question. If the underground aquifers are totally off limits, where is all this new water actually coming from? The answer is the sea, processed through these immense cinematic coastal facilities. One of the primary methods they use is multi-stage flash desalination. Honestly, think of it as industrial alchemy. They heat seawater until it's near boiling, rush it into a series of low-pressure chambers where it instantly flashes into steam, and then they condense that steam into pure, distilled water. They are essentially boiling the ocean, cleverly using the leftover heat from one stage to power the next in this massive continuous loop. But as you can imagine, boiling the ocean takes massive amounts of energy, which led to a pivot toward an even more advanced energy-efficient technology: towering stacks of reverse osmosis membrane systems. This is actually the dominant technology today, providing over 2/3 of the country's municipal water. So instead of boiling water, this system uses intense brute force pressure to push seawater through microscopic polymer membranes. The precision happening here is just staggering. The pores in those reverse osmosis membranes are just 0.001 microns wide. That is so unimaginably microscopic that not even a single virus, let alone salt ions or bacteria, can squeeze through. It filters out 99.9% of salt and minerals. And here's the kicker. Because of modern pressure recovery devices, it pulls this off using roughly the same energy footprint as a standard home air conditioner. It's an absolute game changer for the region. But the engineering paradox definitely continues when you look at the logistics of moving all that heavy water. The desert, as it turns out, isn't totally flat. To reach cities and farms up on plateaus and mountains, this water has to flow uphill. It takes a staggering 9% of Saudi Arabia's total national electricity output just to power the massive pumping stations that push this water against gravity 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It is quite literally a river that actively defies gravity. We definitely have to look at the darker environmental cost of this modern miracle, though. For every liter of fresh water produced, the process leaves behind incredibly concentrated salt. We're talking 3.3 million tons of toxic, hyper-salty brine waste every single day. To put that massive number in perspective, that is equivalent to the weight of 16,500 fully loaded Boeing 747 jumbo jets. And remember, that waste is generated every single day. So we're left with this really high-stakes question. Where on earth does an ocean's worth of waste salt actually go? Historically, dumping this hot, hyper-salty brine directly back into the Red Sea created localized dead zones. It raised water temperatures and salinity to levels that just absolutely devastated marine ecosystems and coral reefs. You can't simply dump 16,500 Boeing 747s worth of salt into the sea daily without some severe ecological blowback. The solution requires a total paradigm shift toward a circular water economy. Right now, engineers are pioneering deep-sea multi-diffusers. Think of them as complex underwater networks that safely disperse and dilute the salt over vast areas to protect marine life. Even more fascinating is the shift toward brine mining. Instead of just treating the brine as a waste product, they are developing ways to extract valuable metals like magnesium, potassium, and even lithium for batteries. They are literally turning an environmental liability into a sustainable, high-tech resource, all while adopting solar energy to power these massive desalination plants. It really has been an epic journey of survival and innovation. We go from the catastrophic agricultural mistakes of the 1970s and early 2000s that nearly drained an ancient ecological battery, right up to the modern marvel of a 14,000-kilometer artificial river. And looking forward, their Vision 2030 goal is super ambitious, aiming to meet 100% of the nation's water needs sustainably, relying entirely on advanced desalination, recycling, and these new circular economies. When you look at cinematic facilities like this, it perfectly encapsulates the entire journey. They represent a nation that realized it was rapidly running out of its most precious resource, and instead of just accepting defeat, they decided to literally build a brand new hydrological system from scratch. It is a stunning blend of the deep blue sea and cutting-edge human engineering. Truly a monument to humanity's sheer willpower and our capacity to rewrite our own ecological destiny. Which leaves us with this final provocative thought to ponder as we wrap up this explainer. If a nation with absolutely zero natural rivers can engineer an artificial ocean of fresh water in the harshest desert on Earth, what other seemingly impossible climate boundaries can human innovation conquer next? As we all face a warming planet and increasing water scarcity globally, the lessons from this underground river might just be the exact blueprint we all need to survive.